Unfortunately, I did not want to voice over the actual video, as our first engineer offered us some helpful insights during the actual video itself, and that would involve me talking over him. So as I discuss this video that follows my voiceover, please enjoy this picture of the Colt Peel Stick engine on the USNS Rappahannock, our previous ship. As is usually the rule, safety does come first when you are cleaning a sea strainer. So for this reason, we have locked out the valve that leads into the sea strainer from the sea chest, which will keep us from having water flood into the engine room, which could cause some major problems for not only us, but the engine room itself. After this is done, the gate valve that goes to the saltwater cooling system will be secured. It's important to note that before you close off any sea strainer from the saltwater cooling system, that the ship does need saltwater cooling in order to function properly. So you have to make sure that the other sea chest is online. In this situation, this is the low sea chest, which means, of course, that we are in port and we are not using it. So the high sea chest can be used. But it's important that when you are cleaning out a sea strainer, that you always have one sea strainer online. Now, what is shown in this first video that is about to come up is us closing off the valve. This prevents water from flooding out when we do open up the sea strainer.
You're gonna need the buckets and you're gonna need the tank ball.
This is like Bussy.
Yeah.
Make you open and close that valve.
After all water sources have been secured from the sea strainer, you can start the process of draining the sea strainer in order to work on it, because you can't do too much to the basket inside of the sea strainer while it's filled with water. Also, if the water is pressurized, it presents a hazard to the crew who is taking the lid off of the sea strainer. So the procedure for doing this is to open the vent valve at the top to allow for water to flow out of the vent valve at the bottom. You do them in that order. It's sort of like if you hold your finger at the top of a straw and take it out of your drink, it will retain water inside of it. So it's important to have air be able to flow in through the top so that water can flow out of the bottom. So once it's emptied, you can close out the bottom valve, and you will not be needing that again for the remainder of this evolution, but the vent valve at the top will remain open.
Now we just going to do it now, so we can start loosening up on these buckets. Don't take them completely off, just loosen them up. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
After there's no more water in the sea strainer, you can begin to really take the sea strainer apart. So 3 tasks are all done at the same time. The bolts are loosened, which allows for the lid of the sea strainer to be taken off. First, they're loosened with a wrench on opposite sides. So if one bolt is loosened, then the bolt on the opposite side will also be loosened at the same time. This will prevent warping of the lid of the sea strainer. Now, while this is going on, there's a remote temperature detector and a remote pressure detector, both at the top of the sea strainer. Now, both of these must be disconnected in order for the sea strainer to be open. They will not prevent the C strainer from being opened, but if the C strainer is opened with these two pieces of equipment attached, it will damage the equipment as the wires tend to be brittle on top of them.
You mean the frame?
That ring you had? Yes. Now, is that upside down? Is that upside down? No. It's soft.
That's right.
So just take your time is what I'm saying. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
You broke it. You didn't see that piece moving? That's why I said try not to break the piece off.
Well, I'm sitting here holding it. Y'all should have said it was that's what y'all repaired.
No, man. You got eyes. You can see.
It like started like unscrewing.
That special piece in the middle that's really do it. He did it. One way.
In order for the basket to be removed, the lid of the C strainer must be opened. The lid is opened with a chain fall. The chain fall is attached to a hard point above the C strainer and is attached to an eye on top of the lid of the C strainer. Now, pulling the chain fall up will cause the C strainer to open to 90 degrees so that the basket can be removed and cleaned.
We're not going to tie it back. We're just going to leave it on that.
Shit taking out the sides and shit.
You gotta scoop all this water out?
Huh?
Do we scoop this water out?
Scoop the water out?
Scoop the water out?
You want to?
What about water?
Oh,
I thought this is water.
right here?
Yeah, I see this metal now.
Oh,
That's disgusting.
you thought that was water?
Yeah, I was like, I think there's still a bit of in there.
You thought this was water?
I was like, did we drain
Right
it?
there. No, it was water.
So before you put the C strainer back in, it's important to clean it. You clean the basket using a combination of some chemicals, compressed air, and water. It's important to not put chemicals back into the saltwater cooling system because it will be discharged overboard. So after you give it a thorough rinse, you are good to put it back into the C strainer and put the C strainer back in action. To bring the C strainer back online, you're going to need to do several things, many of which are just the previous steps in reverse order, which I'm going to go over now. You're going to put in the basket in the place and orientation where it was before, close the lid, and begin hand tightening all of the bolts. You can hand tighten them in any order, but it's important that when you use a wrench to tighten them, after you hand tighten them, that you once again do it on the opposite side of the bolt that you're tightening. So it's a two-man job, and it will prevent warping if you do it that way. After this is done, you can reattach the remote temperature and pressure detectors. They will screw on. You can use a wrench to tighten them in place, and you will begin getting accurate pressure and temperature readings. The pressure and temperature readings shouldn't mean anything until it is filled with water, though. In this recording, we were changing out the basket and the low suction sea chest, which is the sea chest that is used while underway. So, given that we were in port, we did not put the sea chest back online. However, if we were to do so, the first step would be to ensure that the bottom vent valve is closed, ensure that the top vent valve is open to allow it to fill with water. Now, you'd want to stand clear of this top vent valve while the valve to the low sea chest was open. It's not necessarily dangerous, but you will get wet if you are standing in the way of the stream of water coming out of that valve. After this is done, there's water coming out of the vent valve can be closed, and the discharge valve from the strainer can be reopened, and the sea strainer will be back online filtering water for the saltwater cooling system.